Oh, hello! We are back with another Saturday afternoon stream. I've got my wonderful team of Mr. Matt Brown. How you doing, Matt?
Oh, I'm good. I'm a little sleepy, but I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. And we got Tom from Curlish Mania. What's happening, Mr. Curlish Mania?
Cody and Matt, how are you guys? I'm so psyched that the Dream Team is back together on another Saturday at noon. I got my Diet Coke. I'm waking up too.
Yep.
So let's go.
Yeah, it's awesome. I got my waters and a bucket for when I have to piss later. No, I don't have that. But
Oh, Tom, how nice he brought extras for us, man. That's very, very, very considerate.
Yeah.
No, everything's good. And Tom and Matt, thank you guys so much for joining me again. Much love to both of you. You guys are solid. It'd be cool if Lauren Murphy had been part of this one, but I guess he'll be back sooner than later. So today, what we are doing is we are ranking the debut albums from the classic Genesis members, from the solo albums. We're not going into like Anthony Phillips. I mean, you can if you want. I didn't. I went with the Lamb lineup. So Steve Hackett, Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, Peter Gabriel. And I think what we'll do is we'll go from like great to amazing. So it's kind of like a worst to best, even though there is no worst here. So we'll go from like our least favorite to our favorite, And I think we'll do one turn each until we get to the last one. So like Matt will go, then Tom will go, then I'll go, and so on and so forth. We'll go around the horn like that, go shot for shot.
That works.
And so here we are looking at the debut albums from Genesis solo members, and these are all good. This is hard to rank, and it can change by the day. So heck with it. Let's just roll with it and see what ends up. So, Mr. Matt Brown, feel free to take us away.
All right. The story happened in England in 1978. And a gentleman who plays a lot of ivories made a record, mostly by himself. I don't know why I'm talking like this.
I like it. I like it, though. I like it.
I'm blaming it on lack of sleep, but it's okay. I think if I remember correctly, maybe the only other two people on the record are a gentleman who sang for the Incredible String Band. Is that right?
It could be.
That's right. Yeah.
His name escapes me at the moment. And then Chester Thompson plays drums. But I think Tony plays everything else on this record I'm talking about. And I'm, of course, talking about Tony Banks' first solo record, Curious Feeling. And I guess it came out in 79. Yeah, good. There's the copies. Yes.
Great record.
I'm about to make, especially for I'm such a huge Genesis fan, as you guys know. I play in Genesis tributes, and I've been listening to them since I was a kid and everything. But I and being a keyboard player,
and a good one too, a very good one.
Well, thank you. Tony's solo records are great, but I find them the hardest to connect with emotionally, and it seems very backwards that would be the case, but unfortunately it is, and it's not for lack of trying, because I will definitely trot them out every so often, and the more I listen to Curious Feeling, the stronger it gets for me. But I've noticed, just as in a general rule, it's been the hardest one of these five to really get into. So yeah. I'm rating it as good and great, of course, but I'd like to call it unbelievable, and maybe at some point I'll get there. I mean, I know, Lucky Me is wonderful, and and then there's From the Undertow, and this. I mean, it's an album loaded with incredible melody and kind of the standard Tony Banks style of arranging. It's making me think that, at least so far, what he does when he's prompted by the Genesis guys and what they do to his compositions and his ideas ends up moving me more than just his solo work. I mean, there's also The Fugitive and Still and Bank Statement. I mean, he's done a bunch of records, and there's great songs on all of them. But I just find it kind of odd for me in particular that this would be the one that I would actually be starting to talk about first instead of last. Just one of those weird things, you know.
If you want a good collection of Tony Banks solo albums, there's a 4-disc CD set that you can get called A Chord Too Far. And it's really good. I have it. And it's got probably the best tracks. Like, it's even got the songs that he did with Fish from Marillion. He did a number of songs with Fish.
Yeah. Shortcut to Somewhere or something?
Yeah.
Shortcut to Somewhere. Yeah, the soundtrack work.
But if you look at the Still album, if you open it up and you look at the band members on the picture inside or on the back, if you look on the far left, that's Mr. Derek Dick.
That's right. And
so,
another singer that I absolutely am a huge fan of, and most people in America don't know him other than his now connections with Tony and Steve Hackett, is a guy called Nick Kershaw. And Nick is on the Still album. And he sings a couple of my favorite tracks on that record. So
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's right. And I think he's on Red Day on Blue Street, right? Is that him on that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
That's one of the songs he sings on. Yeah.
And I Want to Change the Score. Yeah, the lyrics, I Want to Change the Score are, if you're a lyric person, it's a good one to go for.
Definitely. All right. There's a lot of great lyrics on that record in particular, But anyway, that's the thing. Curious Feeling is one of those records that it probably should be my number one record, you know, and maybe someday it will, but I do really enjoy it. So, you know, I can't say anything negative about it. You know what I mean? And I won't.
Yeah. No, I get you. That's cool. That's cool. Great. Great. Everything you said was pretty spot on. What's Tom got for us? Nice Genesis shirt, by the way.
Ooh, I like that.
I dug it out. I had to find it before. I was like, where's my Genesis shirt? I gotta find it.
I'm gonna go on record and say I really like the Abacab record, and I love that picture of them sitting up against that wall and Phil sitting with the cross-legged.
I had this on my wall when I was in 8th, 9th grade. You know, I had that on my wall. The inside cover of Abacab with them sitting there on my wall.
Yeah.
I love that picture with Phil wearing that hat. It's just.
They just look so cool. They're like country gentlemen or something. It's so cool, you know. And these guys are rock stars, and they look like professors. It's like, what the hell? It's great. I love it.
I know.
That's what I love about Genesis. Sort of a dichotomy, you know. You know, but I gotta. This is a very tough task, Cody. I'll start with that. Matt kind of hit on it. Like all of these albums are quality. They're all high quality, right? Because I mean, if you're a Genesis fan, there's a lot to like in all of these, right? It's just, and what's interesting, and Matt touched on this as well a little bit, that you can kind of tell what everybody brought to the table a little bit when you start listening to the solo records. You really kind of go, oh, okay, because there's this magic when the trio gets together, when Tony, Mike, and Phil get together, there's magic that happens.
Yeah.
Of course, there's tons of magic when like you said, the Lamb lineup. I mean, there's just so many ideas floating around between Hackett, Gabriel, Rutherford, Phil Collins, and Tony Banks. It's like they couldn't jam every idea onto an album. They were arguing because they had so many ideas, you know. So these guys are a creative bunch of people, and just constantly having ideas flowing. And but it's interesting. Especially for some reason, it's interesting to know from the trio, like from Rutherford, Banks, Collins, who brings what, because there is something different when they record together. And there's like this gumbo, this soup that's just like perfect when they get together and write together. And you can feel like, okay, maybe the ingredients, this is part of the ingredients over here. And I'm going to go with, as Matt did, and this pains me. It pains me. It hurts to put this last because I really do like this album a lot. Curious Feeling. And I wanted to mention before we start into that is that you could kind of blame Phil's marriage for a lot of this stuff because I guess during the Then There Were Three tour, he was having marriage problems. And because the Retreat 3 tour went forever, right? And it was like he was on the road all the time. And his wife was like, you need to get back home, man. Our marriage is in trouble. And so he went on another jaunt there was like the final leg of the tour or something, and then it was like she was like, I'm done, and she moved out. So he came home to a dark, empty house after that tour and was like, oh man, I got to try to fix my marriage. So he called Mike and Tony and said, hey man, I know we want to jump into another album, but I can't do that right now. I got to go try to fix my marriage. So they went, okay. Back in the day, they'd say, fine, we'll get another drummer. Now that I think by this point they were like, okay, go sort out your marriage. We're going to do solo records. So that's kind of how a lot of these happen. But anyway, from the Undertow, from this, man, this feels almost like a companion piece to Then There Were Three at times. You know, it almost feels like Then There Were Three, like you know, like a cousin to Then There Were Three or something. And so if you're in the mood, sometimes you listen to Then There Were Three, and then I put this on right after because it's kind of like it just continues the mood, you know.
Yeah.
But you're right. The singer is Kim Beacon was his name.
That's right.
Yeah, Kim Beacon, and I didn't know that he was part of Incredible String Band. So there you go. That's new for me. But his vocals, he does a great job on this. I mean, his vocals are very good on this. Very all the way through. And you know, it's surprising. There's like some kind of deep, sort of proggy, deep, moody kind of stuff on this. But then there's also things like Lucky Me.
Yeah.
You know, For a While. A Curious Feeling. These are all kind of poppy songs, actually. When you really listen to them, you're like, whoa, these are kind of, they're not like super proggy deep. It's like almost like they're like little ditty, you know, like he also did songs like Trick of the Tail, which is kind of a jaunty little poppy number, almost like a Beatlesy kind of thing, right? And you kind of you hear that a little bit on this record, that sort of jauntiness, that sort of Beatlesy, you know, stuff that comes out a little bit. So you're going, okay, maybe Tony does like a good pop song on occasion, you know. So you know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting that Genesis went in that direction. It's like Tony wasn't fighting it. I think when you listen to this album, you go, okay, there's some, you know, some stuff on here that kind of shows the direction Genesis was going. But I'm putting this last, but it pains me because I do listen to this a lot. I pull this one out quite a bit. And like, I think Matt really nailed it when he said the emotional connection isn't quite as strong as the other records for some reason. I think it's because Tony's so reserved. You know, Tony's just a reserved gentleman. It's like he is a great musician, but he's so reserved, and he just sits on stage, barely makes any facial expressions while he's playing. And you're like, it guy's a great musician, but I don't know nothing about him, right? So and he doesn't show his heart like someone like, for example, Phil does, right? He doesn't show his feelings or emotions like Phil does. Phil wears his heart on his sleeve. So maybe that's what's holding this back, you know. I don't know. So but I love it. I love it to death. And I saw that, Cody, that you had the like remix. Is it a remaster or what is that?
Yeah, this is the remastered CD. It comes with the DVD with the album remixed in surround sound.
Okay. Oh, cool. Nice.
It's pretty cool. I got the vinyl too, but CDs were just kind of easier to grab, so I just, you know, went for the discs for these. Great pick. I can't argue with it. I can't do anything to try to be different here. It's the same for me. This is the number 5 pick for me. It's a great album. It was written. So the piece from the Undertow was actually written as a precursor to Undertow, which is on Then There Were Three. They didn't use it for whatever reason. I mean, maybe it was just a running time thing. I don't know. But it's a great piece, and it would have worked perfectly on the album next to it. It would have been pretty awesome. But yeah, you guys pretty much covered everything I could have said about this. You know, Chester Thompson, great. Anything that he's on is fantastic. And same with Tony Banks. There is some poppy melodies and stuff on here, but you know, we got the prog corner in the house. What's up, Scott? Woo! Tony has no emotions. A cold-blooded killer.
He's like the Terminator. He's like the Terminator.
Maybe he's like Commander Data. Maybe he's an android. I don't know.
I think he does have emotions, and I think he's just a sophisticated guy. And I think that his emotions, he's such an eloquent dude that it comes out in the way that he approaches the chordal choices and the movements in the songs and stuff here. He didn't have the same chart success that the other guys did. He doesn't do. I mean, even if you think of the 80s Genesis songs, there's no Genesis songs that only has 4 chords. It doesn't happen at all. Even Invisible Touch. If you think the poppiest of the poppiest Genesis songs, it has at least 6 or 7 different chords throughout the song. Invisible
Right.
Touch has a lot of chords in it, and there's lots of modulations and things, and people kind of think, oh, Invisible Touch, well, the musicality in that, well, listen to the bridge, how it modulates into something totally odd, and then it modulates once again at the end of the song. So it's Tony Banks. He knows what he's doing, but as great as his albums are, there's lots of great songs. His strength is really shows within the band.
Yeah.
And but you really get to see where he's at mentally with this record. And so, yeah, it's great. It's great, but it's at the bottom of this amazing pile for me. And it's a testament to how great these other records are too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The fine record, fine album.
Someone's going to correct me. I think I just realized my own error. Kim Beacon, it's not the Incredible String band he was in. I think he was in a band called String Driven Thing and My Morning Fog.
That's it.
Forgot which. I think I had it has the name String in it, but it's String Driven Thing. That's the band.
You got it, Matt. That's it.
If Scott is still in the Peanut Gallery, which I hope, if he's still in the Peanut Gallery, he will know. He will know.
Don't trust him.
Scott, help us out. Is it String Driven Thing? I think it is.
Pretty sure it is. Yeah, hopefully someone will corroborate, but I'm pretty sure that's what I meant to say earlier. So there you
go. Well, while we figure that out, we'll move on to our next pick. Matt, what's next for you, brother?
Okay, this is hard. This is really hard because
it's so hard.
Yeah, it really is. This is a formidable task. I mean, these next 4 records, I play a lot.
Still,
yeah.
I've been into all of them.
Impossible.
I've been into all of them for a very, very long time. But yeah, tough. It's really, really tough. This is probably where things are going to start to get divergent. I'm obviously, like, the 3 of us have coincidentally all picked the same album to start with, but I think that from this point forward is where it may start changing. Just a hunch.
It might go like this at this point. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, we might get a little. And I preface this by saying, this record has tons of amazing stuff on it. But I'm going with Voyage of the Acolyte by Steve Hackett. My next one. I told ya. I told ya.
Told ya.
Now, that's not to say anything, I can't say a single negative thing about Steve's first solo record. It is absolutely brilliant. Shadow of the Hierophant alone. The rest of it could be awful, and Shadow is so amazing that
oh my god, yeah,
it would that would be okay. I'm in several hours from now, I may actually wake up and go, dude, what was I thinking? But I'm going off my gut at the moment. But Ace of Wands, Star of Sirius, the pieces, Tower Struck Down, the Pieces of Hands of the Priestess. I mean, it's just an unbelievable record. It's gorgeous, pastoral. Obviously, he's got Mike and Phil on it.
It's like a Genesis album with no Genesis.
Pretty much. I know.
And
it definitely sits. I mean, it sits as a very interesting bridge between The Lamb and Trick of the Tail. Since it was recorded while they were coming up with trying to figure out what's going to happen next, and the songs for Trick some of them were were starting to be written and everything, but yeah, I mean, especially with the textures. Obviously, even though Tony's not on it, there's tons of Mellotron on it, and you could almost be forgiven for thinking that maybe Tony guested ghostly on the record, because parts of it I hear and I go, are the liner notes accurate? But of course the liner notes are accurate. But
no, he's not on it. He wouldn't have been so jealous if he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is such a stunner of an album, and I feel that way about Steve's first 3 solo records in particular. I mean, we could talk about the rest of them too. I mean, but this album was such a huge. It also showed how much backlog he had, given that Genesis records were some of the longest records of their time. They had an enormous trouble, editing their albums because as Tom said, there's so many ideas floating around with these guys. They're so immensely creative, and they all want to put their stamp on the record. So, Sailing England was like 55 minutes. I mean, it's a long for a single album in 1973. That's long.
We got Zeb in the audience. What's up, Zeb? Woohoo!
Zeb's representing this.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like a Genesis album too. I mean, even though we didn't really include it, you guys can include it if you want. I just didn't. I went with the Lamb lineup, but that's a pretty good album. It's got Phil Collins on it too. It can't be that bad.
Yeah,
that's true. So anyway, I mean, I want everybody to go, we can keep going around the panel, but yeah, it was such a hard call, and I had to say "such a" 3 times. That's how hard it was.
I didn't mean to jump in on you. Sorry, I just had to address.
No, it's okay. Yeah, but it's definitely a very beautiful, very powerful record. There's no question about it.
And all about that tarot stuff that I guess he was into at the time. Pretty cool. I mean,
Priestess
cool.
and almost looks like a Paul Whitehead cover.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, isn't it Kim? It's Kim Poor, right?
It is Kim Poor, right? It was his wife at the time, but
all right. Well, as Matt is, I think we are going to diverge at this point. So, but as Matt pointed out, I got to just reiterate over and over and over again. This is a really difficult task, and I feel horrible putting this album where I'm putting it. I feel the same way. It's like I'm going to feel worse every pick, right? Because you're like, oh, all of these albums are great. So I am going with Smallcreeps Day next.
Okay.
And that's, believe me, I did some homework getting ready for this, and I was struggling where to place this because it's so good. I mean, it's high quality stuff, man. When you listen to, I forgot how great the Smallcreeps Day Suite is.
Simon Phillips, buddy. Simon Phillips
is killing it on it, right? He's killing it.
Yeah.
He's like, I gotta follow Phil Collins. I'm gonna bring in my A game, right? So he does. And Simon Phillips is a Class A drummer, there's no question, and he kills it on this. And there, another thing that struck me listening to this again, and I've listened to this many, many, many times, but it's like there's a lot of Duke kind of sounds on this. You can kind of feel Duke coming when you listen to some of this.
Yes, you can.
The guitar tones and bass pedals and just it's like that sounds. There's a couple of sections on Smallcreeps Suite that sound a lot like Duke, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, man. I love that. That's great. And the singer, whoever the singer is on this record is quite strong as well.
Yeah. Noel McCalla.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I love his voice so much.
Man, he does a great job on this. Like, he sounds great. And I wish he had made another album with him and Simon. Like, I wish he had done another record with the same lineup.
But instead we got the monstrosity that came after it. So
yeah, and he never came back to this. He never revisited anything from this album. Like, maybe he did, but I didn't know of it. Like, I don't think Mike and the Mechanics were playing Smallcreeps Day.
No. He kind of did that record, which I find very, very strange. Speaking of, pun intended, but yeah, it was. I don't know why, but he must have his reasons. But
yeah,
we got Kyle from All Media Reviews in the house. What's up, Kyle? Woohoo!
Yeah, what's up, Kyle?
Yeah.
So yeah, apparently it's an album about a guy who's like 9-to-5 job. He's totally boring life, and he's got this 9-to-5 job, and he's always looking at the clock. I can't wait to get out of here. For a guy that has such a boring life, he's got a great soundtrack, right? So, and and then songs like the first side is more just like poppier songs, kind of the song format. Things like Every Road kind of remind me of a little bit of like Snowbound or something, with those like really strident acoustic guitars. But great song. I mean, every road that I take is the same. I just love that. I think it's a great
Tom's
melody.
a good singer too.
What's that?
Tom's a good singer. I got 2 great singers on this panel with me here right now. Wow. Matt Brown and Tom Curlis. You got Tom Curlis and the 46, and you got Matt Brown and Heliopolis and a museum and all that fun stuff.
Right on.
Lots of talent going on here.
All of us are frustrated musicians. We're all free musicians here. And then overnight Job, man, is another killer track. I like that song a lot too. Yeah, so anyway, it pains me to put it here, but that's where I got to do it. That's where I got to put it. So.
Well, feel no pain, my brother, because it's in the same place for me. Okay. It's produced by David Henschel. This is a very good album, and I feel what you said about it sounding very much like a precursor to Duke, because where was it? It was recorded. It wasn't recorded at the farm, I guess. I guess they hadn't started doing that yet.
I don't think so. Yeah,
but it was produced by David Henschel. His name is spelt wrong on the back of the CD here, but Henschel anyway. And so yeah, I totally feel why you feel that it is very connected to Duke, and it is a very good album. And he never ever touched on anything of this caliber. Again, the Mike and the Mechanics stuff is great. Okay, like The Living Years is a totally emotional song about his dad passing away and all that. All I Need is a Miracle is a great pop hit. And Mike is a very underrated pop writer. A lot of people don't know that he actually wrote a lot of their big singles, especially when they started having singles. He was kind of the guy that wrote a lot of them. He wrote Follow You, Follow Me. People sort of associate that with Phil Collins. And no, Phil had never even really written a song when Follow You, Follow Me came out. He talks about it in his book. He goes, well, we had that single, and so Tony and Mike were making money, and I was not. That would come with the next record, and obviously an album that we're going to talk about in a little while. But we're still on this, and it is a fantastic album. You know all the great music we got as a result of Phil's wife leaving him.
Totally.
I'm just kidding, Phil. If you're watching this, I love you. But no, the Smallcreeps Day, yeah, very, very good record, and it's very different than anything that he would have done next. And you'd think that the next one would have been better than this because it's got Stuart Copeland on it too, but it's not. So it's not.
It was recorded at Polar Studios, which is ABBA's studio in Stockholm. So that's where it was recorded, by the way.
And that's where they recorded, and then there were 3 also. I think
that's right. I think that's true.
So that's maybe also has that vibe to it, that sound.
Yeah. And I love And Then There Were 3 and Duke. Those 2 records to me are both outstanding albums. And so this is a great bridge piece between the 2 of them. Like if you take these 2 solo albums that came out between those 2 records, this is really they're like stepping stones between Trick, and Duke. Yes. Duke. So
yeah, definitely a bridge for sure.
Yeah. So Smallcreeps Day for me too. Tom, it looks like our rankings are mostly the same so far, but we'll see.
We'll see. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. Can I make one last comment about this record before I forget?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Sorry, that is that do 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 do. That came from this album. That started with Smallcreeps, and it was an idea. It was left over from this record, and it was really slow. Apparently, it was do 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 do, and Phil was like, "Let's speed that thing up, man."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in an odd time. All right, Mr. Matt, what do you got next? I mean, you already blown my mind with the Steve Hackett.
I know.
I like it though. It's different. Everybody hears it different. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it too. And you guys are great. And so I trust y'all's opinions very much.
It was bound to happen. After all, we are our own peoples as well. So in this case, it seems so like I'm not ranking them. Number 5, number 4, number 3. But the next one I'm going to go with is Face Value. Phil Collins, his first solo record, an album in which he basically was encouraged by Ahmet Ertegun to get whoever he wanted. Like, I think Ahmet actually said to him, put together a dream team of who you want. I'll see how many of them I can get. I think he got just about everybody. I mean, he's got Clapton on there. Of course, he's got Leland Sklar. He's got Daryl, from the touring band, and
it's such a good album.
I mean, violin, and I mean a whole bunch of other people. And it's just fantastic. And I love the fact that some of these were demos that, you know, he gave to Hugh Padgham, and rather than trying to recreate them, they just built on the demos. That was not something that happened very often in 1981, 1980, you know. But it's just a fabulous record, and it's very different. I mean, nobody could have seen that stylistic shift coming from Phil. No one had any idea, other than the fact that by that point, Misunderstanding and Please Don't Ask had shown up on albums and stuff. It sort of gives you a clue, like, well, this is where Phil is going. But
and those were written for this album too.
Exactly, right. They were that batch of songs. So yeah, it's such, you know, Tom had said earlier about how Phil wears his heart on his sleeve, and his entire career has really been about that. And even when I know he had said that, you know, sometimes he had trouble connecting with some Genesis lyrics because of he obviously is a singer that is a soul singer. He's a blue-eyed soul singer, basically. Needs that emotional connection to what he's singing about in order to sell it, in order to make it matter, in order to connect with the listener. And I mean, he does it in spades on this record. It's obviously very autobiographical, and so many of the songs about his estrangement from his wife at the time and their divorce. And there's so many highlights. I mean, there's the weird cover of Tomorrow Never Knows that ends the album that's very reimagined and really, really cool. And you've got that strange, almost like a weird country-ish song, The Roof is Leaking, in the middle of side one. And, you know, total blue-eyed soul and things like Thunder and Lightning and It Must Be Love, the rethinking of Behind the Lines, of course, the big juggernaut tonight. You know, I mean, it's an album that's just loaded with interesting things, and it flows together so well. So I, you know, as a young person, I had a really strong connection to that record. I remember I was telling Cody offline that I remember buying the In the Air Tonight 45 when it came out in 1981, and eventually bought the album. And it ended up being the first CD I ever bought in 1985. I wanted the Genesis 83 album, but CDs in 1985 were not easy to find, and the shop that I worked for at the time only got a small amount of them in. And I think I even asked them, hey, can you guys order this? And I think they tried and they weren't able to, but they had face value. So I was like, all right, well, I'll start here, you know.
That's a good place.
I'd already had his 3 albums on vinyl by that point, but I still, you know, I had read great things about the way it sounded. I mean, sonically, it's an unbelievable piece of work, you know. Yeah. So it's probably that more personal connection for me that made me rank it where I did. I mean, it's such a night and day different album. Obviously, Hackett and Collins are both amazing musicians and amazing writers, and you really see their paths, you know, and where they diverge and where they could be potentially similar. But those 2 records are so different from each other. It's very interesting, you know.
And Phil plays on both.
Yeah, and as it happens, Phil plays on both of them. So there you go, you know.
And he does the unthinkable. Who would have ever thought to cover themselves?
Yeah. Speaking of Phil, today is July 13th.
Yeah.
That's not like an important detail, but it was on this day in 1985 that Phil Collins played at both stages at Live Aid.
Oh,
wow, great.
Took the
great
Concorde,
piece of information. I love it.
Played in London, and then he flew to America to do another quick solo set and play with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, and I forget who else he played with. He played with Clapton. That's right. So, yeah.
And he did solo. Yeah. 39 years ago today.
Yep.
Wow.
And he did a duet with Sting too. He did.
That's right.
Yeah.
They did that little set together. That little, you know, couple songs together. I remember watching it live and taping it and just being like, oh my God, wow, this is great. You know.
So okay, well, that brings me up a question.
Okay.
What was it like watching Queen perform that day?
It was electrifying.
Yeah.
It was positively electrifying, and it made me regret that I didn't see them in '82 when I possibly could have had a chance. Because I didn't know that they had decided to stop touring America. I mean, they had that terrible reaction to most of the Hot Space record, and basically they were like, no, we're not going back to the States until we have a #1 record there. But that turned into a vicious cycle, because at that time you kind of had to tour America to get a #1, and so they never really got to do that. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I got to see Queen the next time they come around. But there was never a next time for anybody in the United States or in Canada.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's what happened for
But
me.
it was
kind of Magic didn't come to the US, right? Yeah.
And pretty much everywhere else except North America.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, for me, and I loved a lot of performances at Live Aid. I was familiar with a lot of the artists at that point and stuff. But I mean, the two that stood out the most were U2 and Queen. They just, if U2 might have stolen the show if it weren't for Queen. They were both just amazing. And then they knew how to reach. I mean, Queen knew better than anybody how to reach that many people and how to connect with that many people.
Yeah. Didn't someone, one of the quotes from one of the members, I can't remember who it was, maybe Brian May or somebody, said it really wasn't fair. He's like, It wasn't a fair. He's not a fair fight. Like, we just know how to do that. Like, that's our thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And but man, you watch that today, I still get like goosebumps. I get goosebumps. I get like emotional when I watch it. It's so good.
Oh my God, yeah.
And Fred was sick the day.
He was sick. He had a cold. He was not feeling well. I mean,
really? Yeah.
Well, he was also sick, and nobody. I mean, no one had talked about. He hadn't even told anybody, I think, about what.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
But his doctors did not want him to perform, and he was like, "I got to do this." You know.
Yeah.
Thank God for history that he did. So Matt Brown. So your third choice was Phil Collins. Okay.
That was my third.
So, Mr. Curlis from the Curlis Mania. What have you got, my friend?
This is where the rubber hits the road. Oh my God, this gets really, really, really hard now. Okay, so I got to start with, if you had asked me this question, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, my list would be different. But I gotta go with it's funny how like things change a little bit as you get older, and you're like, I listen to that album more than that album now. So I gotta be honest. I can't be not honest. I'd be honest about where I'm at right now.
Right.
So can you tell I'm like struggling with this? So okay. So I'm following Matt. I'm going Phil Collins at number 3.
Oh wow. Okay.
And this was really hard. I want to put this higher. And believe me, if you would ask me this, like I said, 20 years ago, this would be higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I still have massive respect for this record. Huge respect. It's way bigger than In the Air Tonight. I mean, it's way deeper and bigger than just that song. The average person's just like, yeah, In the Air Tonight, face value, In the Air Tonight. Yeah, okay, next. It's like, no. This album has like, listen to the track, man, listen to deep tracks, things like Hand in Hand and Drone. And I love Missed Again, great track. The redo of Behind the Lines with the it's like what like that's crazy, the whole Earth, Wind and Fire horns, it's like, this is crazy. What a reinvention of that song, and it works. Yep. And I guess Tony Smith heard the demos. I actually had a cassette back in the day because I was a big Genesis freak. I had a cassette of the demos that he did for this record. It's just like him and like a drum machine and like piano, and I think he put some of them on the reissue or whatever. But I guess like Tony Smith heard it and he was like, dude, these are great. Like what? Like Phil was like, hey, like I've been messing around a little bit. Here's a couple things. I don't know if they're any good. Like, take a listen. Tony Smith was like, holy shit, these are sorry. We went, wow, these are great. And
whatever you want, man. It's fine. It's good.
I'm sorry. Good. This might be PG. I'm sorry. So
no. The only PG here is Peter Gabriel. Okay, so we're good.
So I guess, like you said, I guess Tony Smith took it to Atlantic and said, hey, listen to these demos. These sound great. Like Phil wants to do a record. Because at this point, Tony and Mike are deep into their album. So Phil was like, I got nothing to do. I might as well make an album. And then I guess, Ahmet Ertegun heard it and was like, hey, man, he's a great man. It's great. And like you said, Matt, he goes, who do you need, man? Who do you want on this record? And like you said, he got his whole wish list, everything. Everybody came and did it.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a lot of special guest stars on this album for sure. So anyway, and then Tomorrow Never Knows. Like I love his cover of Tomorrow Never Knows too. That he just slows it right down. It's so cool. So I am, man, I love this album. It's so painful to put it third, but it's great.
Yep.
Still awesome. Love it to death. Phil Collins, Face Value, his best solo record too, by the way, in my opinion. So awesome.
That's a brilliant album.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I was thinking, okay, Tom, this is going to be scary because just to let the viewers know, we don't discuss the lists beforehand at all, ever. It's a surprise to all of us on the panel. And so, but Tom, when we had the first two the same, I was like, oh gosh, this is getting scary. But this is where we venture off now. So this is okay. Number 3 for me is it's painful. It is painful, and I know exactly what you mean when it's so hard to rank these because this is a brilliant album. It is exactly the record that you would have expected that this man would have made after leaving this band. It's Peter Gabriel's first album.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This is absolutely where you thought you might not have thought he would have put out a hit single. If you were there at the time, you probably didn't expect that he would have a big hit with something like Salisbury Hill, but it's in 7, and it's still a massive hit. Is it in 6 or 7? It's an odd time.
It's in 7.
Like that. Yes. Yeah.
And Robert Fripp's on it.
Yeah. Right.
Robert Fripp's sole entry into the Billboard Hot 100 charts. Actually, no. I think Heroes did pretty good too. He's on that as well, but in Fashion. But anyway, that's a different artist completely. Peter Gabriel, what an absolutely brilliant record. Excuse Me. Excuse me, please.
I want to be a I love that opening. And the barbershop quartet opening is so
barbershop, yeah.
It's so great.
Hi, gals, from Mr. Lauren Murphy. Lauren, what are you doing, man? You want to come
Dude.
Lauren, you should be up
Jump
here.
on, Lauren. Get on here.
Come on up,
Lauren, if you want the link, brother, you let me know and I'll send it over to you. This starts off absolutely the way you would have expected a Peter Gabriel album would start, with Moribund the Burgermeister.
Yeah.
I will fight. It's PG1 recorded in Toronto. That is true. Wow, yeah, it was recorded in Toronto, wasn't it? Yeah, Peter has a huge history in Canada, obviously, with okay, so Lauren would know this, but you guys, I gotta let you guys know because you're not from here. If you go to Hamilton, if you go to the city, there's a restaurant there called Chicago Style Pizza. And so if you go in there, obviously Daniel Lanois, who would produce future Gabriel albums, is from Hamilton, Ontario. He produced U2, Robbie Robertson, Peter Gabriel, and he's just from up the street here.
Right.
Crazy.
If you go into Chicago Style Pizza, there's a signed photograph of the two of them standing in there in 1987. And it's a picture of Daniel and Peter standing there together inside Chicago Style Pizza, and it's signed to the owner from Daniel Lanois.
Oh, that is the coolest piece of art on a restaurant wall ever.
Yes, I know. And I went in there and I was like, there's no way that's Peter Gabriel. That's my guy up on the wall. I had to ask the young girl, like, just to be sure, like I'm like 99% sure that it's Peter Gabriel, but you don't want to be wrong and saying, oh my God, is that Peter Gabriel? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I said to her, who's that working? And she's some young girl. She's like, I don't know who it is. I better show someone else. And then someone else comes out and says, that's Daniel Lanois and Peter Gabriel. I'm like, I knew it. But yeah, I
have no idea. It's like somebody famous in like the 70s or something. I don't know.
yeah, that's exactly the mentality, right? She was nice enough. So if she's watching this, I doubt she is. But if she is, then Sorry, but Peter Gabriel, his first album, it's fantastic. You get the big bombastic version of "Here Comes the Flood," which would be re-recorded on a Robert Fripp solo album of all places to do it.
Yeah.
And again, on "Shaking the Tree" later, and all the versions of it, you get like 3 or 4 different versions of this, all done by Peter, and they're all good. They're all fantastic. I'm still waiting to hear back from Lauren if he wants to jump on the panel with us. I figured he would have said something by now, but fantastic album. Yeah, great record, but it's my number 3, and the number 2. You can't manipulate those. Well, we'll get to those in a bit. Matt Brown, take us away, brother.
Well, your number 3 is my ranked number 2. That, and again, it was like not quite a coin toss, but it was close. I mean, but yeah, that first Gabriel record, I remember hearing Salisbury Hill and eventually getting the rest of the album and just being kind of bowled over by how stylistically all over the map it was, and is.
Yes.
I mean, Slow Burn,
it's a really legendary record.
Yeah, Slow Burn, Down the Dolce Vita, and of course that that bombastic, majestic ending of Here Comes the Flood, Morben the Burgermeister. I mean, Modern Love, Humdrum. That's a really wonderful song. It doesn't get mentioned very often.
I gotta jump in here. We got another Canadian in the audience here, Jeff Dennis. What's up, Jeff? I'm so sorry to horn in on you here, Matt, but Chicago style pizzeria, my neighborhood pizza joint growing up in Z Hammer. That's what we call Hamilton here.
I like that.
Continue.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Ezrin produced that first Gabriel record, and I had already been a Pink Floyd fan by that point, and I knew that Bob Ezrin had produced The Wall, so it was very interesting to go, oh, and I heard that he produced Kiss and Alice Cooper, but I'm like, oh, you produced Peter Gabriel too? That's really interesting, So, but yeah, I that's such a great record, and I don't know what more I don't really know what more I can say about it. It's definitely like, out of these 5, it's definitely one of the ones I listen to the most often.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. It's he's hitting a home run right out of the gate with this, and he's been on a winning streak ever since.
Yeah, and it's also for most people, it was their introduction to Tony Levin, so that's always a good thing.
And for some people who are probably more or less casual music listeners, like on the radio, that's probably their introduction to Peter Gabriel at the time with Salisbury Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some places that I mean, some radio audiences might have known who he was, but most probably didn't, so that's very true.
Now he gets at this point, he gets the white girls with big honkers showing up at his show here, right? Because he's got the single. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, see, this is not typically a PG place, so it's all good.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Tom is looking like, oh, what the hell did I get myself into here, man?
He might also have guys with big honkers coming to his shows as well by this point. So that's
right. Well,
anything goes.
He probably already had those with the Genesis,
That's true. That is true.
But yeah, so wow, I gotta go again, huh? I thought I was done with the pain, but I'm not. Okay. Oh my God, I'm almost making a game time decision here. This is literally almost game time decision. I feel like I'm like coaching a team and it's like 5 seconds left, and what play are you gonna call? Yeah. All right, I'm going Peter Gabriel at number 2. But literally, these last 2 are neck and neck. Matt said, the last comment he said was he listens to this a lot. I agree. I listen to this a lot. Like, this comes out way more than usual. Like, especially lately, last 2 times I've listened to this, I've just been like, man, I love this album. There's just something about it. I don't know how to describe it. There's something about this record. Like Cody said, he came out of the gate swinging, right? And I mean, he's just such a great singer. no matter what this dude does, his voice is so great to me that he can like make even a average song sound amazing just with his voice. But I do think there's a lot of highlights on this album, and I think he recorded it in Canada because of Bob. Bob Ezrin was based right in Canada, wasn't he?
Yes,
right?
yes. I gotta mention, my dad was on a record when he was the bass player in Lee Aaron, and Bob Ezrin actually produced one of their records.
Oh wow!
Nice. Yeah. Okay, that's a cool thing to be able to put on your resume.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yes, a lot of people call this Car, right? Because I mean, it's just all these albums are just Peter Gabriel, so it's like Car, Scratch, Melt, Security, but everyone named him anyway, right? So
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I do think that things like you mentioned more up in the Burgermeister. I mean, what a way to start your debut solo record. It's like, what? It's such a weird song, but I love it to death. I just think it's so cool. That whole, like you said, I will find out.
Blink, blink, blip, blip, blip. Yeah, so good.
What does he say? I believe me, I know. What does he say? When I say I will, I will.
Oh, yeah, mother, you know
Yes.
your son.
You know your son. That's it. Yes, thank you.
I will.
Mr. Wondrous. Woo!
I'm sure they're sorry. Oh, it's
Mr.
great.
Wondrous is in the house. Okay, Zeb brings up my next point is that he talks about Ezrin overproducing it. And honestly, Peter said that he thought that Ezrin way overproduced Here Comes the Flood.
Yes.
And if you notice, whenever he plays it live, he just plays it solo piano. And like I saw him live and he came out and the first song he did was Here Comes the Flood by himself. And it gave me goosebumps, man. I was like goosebumping. It was like so great.
Yeah.
Because his voice just filled the arena. It was like that, just him and a piano, and it was like, here comes the flood, and everyone was like, yes, like it was so great. And so I saw when he did that, I went, okay, now I understand what he's talking about with Ezrin overproducing it, because it really kind of crazy on this version. And then things like Slow Burn and Modern Love. I love Modern Love. Humdrum. Come on. There's a lot of great songs on here. I even like, the only thing, Excuse Me, is kind of like, that kind of feels like a disruption, a little bit of the flow. I mean, it's cool, but it kind of feels way so different than everything else. And it's kind of like, okay, maybe that's a little like experimentation that, it's okay. But I even love Dolce Vita and Waiting for the Big. I mean, this is a great record. Awesome album. Love it to death. I hate to say it's number 2, but it is. Peter Gabriel 1.
There you go.
Oh, such a fantastic record, man. Whoo! When you start talking about Here Comes the Flood, in my head immediately I can hear Peter Gabriel's voice going, when the night flows, signals grow. I can just hear him start singing it in my head, and it's beautiful. And the last time I saw it, oh, it's gorgeous, and that's an amazing record. It's fantastic. It's Cody, send the link. All right, let me send the link over to Mr. Lauren Murphy. Okay.
Good. Join us. Cool.
Oh, Lauren, I love it. He can't take it. He's coming in.
Down the hatch.
Yeah, he just sent me a message and he goes, "All right, send me the link, LOL." All right, here he comes. Okay, so he'll be on here in a second. But the Peter Gabriel record.
Lauren's gonna have to do lightning round.
yeah. No, honestly, right? But that Peter Gabriel record is just so good. It's last time I saw him, he didn't play much of it, but he did play Salisbury Hill. And I just want to say something really cool that he did. He started off the show and he's doing Growing Up, and I forget. It was Growing Up. Matt, you saw the same tour, so you'd remember. Oh, we got Lauren Murphy in the house. What's up?
Oh, hey.
Woo! What's up, Lauren?
What are we talking about? Vandergraaf Generator?
Yeah.
Yes, we're talking about Hamill. What's up, man? How you doing?
Your Hamill records? That's what we're talking about.
Your Hamill records? Perfect. I'm all over it.
They started off doing the show like in like a campfire setting, and it's like him and like a select few members of his band, like Tony Levin and like 2 or 3 other people sitting in this circle around the stage with like an imaginary fire. and like they're playing like acoustic versions of like Growing Up and things like that. It was so cool, and like his artistry is just off the charts.
Oh, that was
Anyway.
the recent tour, Cody, right? The most recent one. That was awesome, killer. It was so killer.
Yeah, that was really sweet.
Yeah,
I saw him once before that too. I don't know how I've seen Peter Gabriel twice, but by the grace of good God above us, I've seen him twice in concert. I saw him with Sting a long time ago, and they shared the stage. It was brilliant. But to this next man, I have seen him solo. I've seen him with Genesis. I love him. This is my number 2 choice, and listening to this list and us talking about these records, I actually almost switched it to number 1, but he's on both of my top 2 albums, so I don't feel so bad in that sense. My number 2 is Phil Collins' Face Value. Absolutely one of the most brilliant records I've ever heard in my life. When I first got into this and just getting new to Phil Collins and listening to his side of the story with his solo records, I got No Jacket Required, and that's a very 80s album. And so someone who's not really accustomed to the 80s, I love that record, by the way, but I love No Jacket Required. But at the time, I wasn't super, I heard it and it's like, okay, then I heard this and just went, wow, okay, this is totally, it's now I love most all of his solo albums. I'm trying to come around to both sides, right? But I do like Dance Into the Light and all the records around it. So both sides will hit me eventually. It's like a curious feeling for Matt, right? I respect it. It's there. It'll happen when it's ready to happen, right? It's a good record. It's just not my favorite one. But this one, what a way to start off with a bang. He was working with Hugh Padgham and Peter Gabriel on the Melt record, right? And so he stole Peter's producer, brought him over to Genesis, actually. But Hugh Padgham and that gated drum sound. This is not where we first heard it. It's on Melt. But this is where a lot of people first heard it. Was I was at a bar once, and this is no word of a lie, okay? So I was with my ex-girlfriend many, many years ago, and I put that on the jukebox. And everybody, the bar was packed, okay? We weren't at the bar. We were sitting in a booth, but everyone at the bar, including the waitress, when that part came on, this is a good story, okay? When that part came on, everybody at that bar did the drum fill. Boom, 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 boom.
That's hilarious. That's funny.
I'm getting chills talking about this, bro. I love this record, and the way it goes into This Must Be Love. That's one of my faves. Lee Sklar happening on that. Behind the Lines, The Roof is Leaking, and that triple shot of the way it goes from The Roof is Leaking to Drones to Hand in Hand is just, it's chef's
so
kiss.
Great. Yeah.
I Missed Again, fantastic. And you know what I mean? When I saw Phil play live, he actually played that song. That was one of the deep cuts he pulled out.
That's a deep track. Yeah, right. Yeah.
His son, Nick Collins, played piano for that.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah. And he prefaced, Phil Collins prefaced the song by saying, this is one of the songs that Nick said that he actually liked. But Thunder and Lightning and the way it goes to I'm Not Moving, they kind of work as like a perfect, like the side-by-side thing. If Leaving Me Is Easy, great song. And you know what? Somebody says that Beatles cover is not good. I have to disagree. I think the Beatles cover is fantastic on this, and I'm a huge Beatles fan. That's how good this album is. It is very good, and you hear him singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow at the end of it. So, yeah, I mean, as a drummer, this should be my number one, but you'll see why number one is what it is in a minute here.
Right.
So, Lauren, what do you want to do? Maybe we'll give you rapid fire so you can give all your choices in one go right now.
Sure. What? It's just every Genesis solo album debut?
Yeah.
The five guys. Yeah. Ooh. Oh.
How do you guys feel about that? You okay with Lauren going all at once now? Like, is that you cool?
For it, man.
Lightning round. Do it. Go for it.
Hey, I can do it all in 30 seconds and be out of here like a shot. Done that before. Okay.
And you're still married. That's great.
I know. Well, that's why I'm married. So what's the best one? I don't know. I did not prepare for this. I just sort of came on and crashed the party.
Yeah. You're always welcome here, brother. Always.
I'd probably say Peter Gabriel. For you guys were just talking about that, but I love Down the Dolce Vita.
Yeah.
That's an amazing bombastic piece. You guys are right. Bob Ezrin did overproduce it, and you should hear Fripp talk about that. Very, very bitter. Look that up sometime. Number two, who else was in Genesis?
Wasn't Waldo in Genesis?
Probably. Well, Chris Stewart, he had a great album. No, I'll say
we went with the Lamb lineup, brother. We went with the Lamb guy.
The Lamb lineup. Okay.
You've got the John Mayhew demos, don't you?
Yeah. No, to me, it was all downhill after Rivers' job left. I'll go with A Curious Feeling because I really like that one.
Yeah.
I love Banks' writing in that whole period. He's very prolific in that time, from sort of like 76 to 80-ish. Steve Hackett's album is pretty great. But over the years, I don't really like Phil's vocals in Star of Sirius. I find them a bit cringy. He's a bit early on in his, he wasn't a pro yet. I'm sure he thinks it's even worse than I do because he's pretty hard on himself, right?
Yeah.
If you read his book, he really is.
He's way too hard on himself, but yes.
You'll notice he didn't put anything from that album on his that release he put out a few years back where he plays well with others, I think it was called.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Nothing from the Hackett album.
Wow.
Face Value, yeah. I put that probably next. This is pretty thrilling for you all, I know. Smallcreeps Day. Who am I missing?
Tony. Oh no, you mentioned Tony already.
I don't like to put Smallcreeps Day at the bottom because I really like it and I love Simon Phillips and but it's probably, if I have to rank them, it's probably last.
Okay.
All right. So you got them all then.
Did he mention Phil?
Yeah. Phil's in there about halfway through, I guess.
All right.
By the way, I think Both Sides is his best one, Cody. So
yeah, you know what? I've got a there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good record. It's just kind of a I just have to spend more time with it, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll do that over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Right on.
10-page report due next Friday.
Well, that's it for me.
All right, bye. No, I'm just kidding. You can stay here if you want. That's cool. You're always welcome, Lauren. You know that. Tom, Matt, Lauren, we got the dream team going on here. Well, there's usually some girl that we have here sometimes, but that's another time she'll be on with us for sure.
Sure you can't have her on now?
That would be really, really cool, man. That would be really
cool. So Matt, what is your number one?
Well, again, it's like pulling teeth, but I heard this album for the first time in the mid '90s. The woman that I was married to for a good long time was a big fan of this record and was kind of blown away that I'd never heard it. And so she actually sent me a copy, which in those days it was an import, not all that easy to find, and I'm talking about Smallcreeps Day. That's believe it or not, out of all these five, that's my favorite. That's the one I listen to the most. Mike disowns it. Simon doesn't even remember playing on it, but it's fantastic. I mean, the Swede and then songs like Every Road and Romani and Time and Time Again, and then all the sweet songs, at the end of the day and Out into the Daylight. It's just tremendous. I mean, and it's so funny to think it definitely, like what you had said earlier about it being a kind of a bridge between Then There Were Three and Duke. You can hear the progression of where Mike was going, and you can just sort of see which way the wind was blowing for a lot, for him. It's very evident there. And I love Noel McCall's voice. He never really did a lot on either side of that. I think at one time he might have been one of Manfred Mann's vocalists, if I remember correctly. But
Okay.
I just thought I had a fantastic voice. And I find it so funny that Mike is so dismissive of this particular album. But
yeah,
Mike is dismissive of this record.
Yeah.
He that's why he doesn't play anything from it. He doesn't talk about it.
Wow.
I don't know what he says about it in his book. I'd like to read that and find out.
Not much. He glosses over it, and he wouldn't even allow Esoteric to put out a deluxe version of it.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
You got to remember though that most of the Genesis guys absolutely hate some of their best work.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I gotta put that one. I gotta put that one up there. I mean, especially if I'm being honest about what I listen to most of the 5. And just Tom, just like you, I mean, if I had done this 15, 20 years ago, the order would have been quite different, you know.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
If I had done this 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have known who Genesis was, and I would have been 6 years old. So,
man, I've still got salmon in my freezer that's older than that.
All right, so Tom.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, that leaves only one, right? There can only be one. And the only one is Steve Hackett. I got to go Voyage of the Acolyte. This is a game time decision. This was almost number 2, but I just the playing on this ensemble playing on this record is just mind blowing at times. Although I got to agree with Lauren that Phil Collins, this is early days singing for him for sure. He doesn't quite have that grit in his voice yet. So I could see how he'd be like Phil would be kind of dismissive of it, like not my greatest moment, but really, I mean, things like Shadow of the Hierophant. I mean, that was apparently started in the Foxtrot sessions, from what I remember, and it was an idea that was left over from Genesis, and you could tell. I mean, it's like, wow, it sounds a lot like vintage Genesis. Hands of the Priestess. Oh man, part 1 and 2. Tower Struck Down is like crazy madness. It's like crazy.
Right. It's brilliant.
And actually, what's funny is that when Steve left, Tony said something which is like I couldn't believe it. Tony said something like, "The one thing I missed about Steve was that he would back up my crazy ideas. Like when I had kind of a crazier idea, Steve would be like, "Yeah, let's do that." Whereas Phil and Mike would be like, "No, maybe not." So when you listen to things like Tower Struck Down, you're like, "Yeah, there's the crazy Steve that he was talking about." Like, it's just nuts. I mean, doesn't it break down at one point and someone's coughing and then all of a sudden it kicks right back in again? It's like, what?
Steve is wild.
Yeah. And Steve and Phil's okay, maybe his singing isn't top notch, but his drumming is like, whoa. I mean, like off the charts on this album. So, this could arguably be Phil's, maybe not, but possibly the height of his drumming capability right around this time. When he's playing with Brand X all the time, he was playing nonstop, and his playing is just crazy good. So I had to go with this one just because just the ensemble playing alone is just mind blowing. So going with that.
Right on.
I think is that on A Tower Struck Down. Was that Percy Jones on bass? I feel like that was him, and it wasn't Mike on that track.
I think you might be right.
I might be misremembering that, but
I don't know. I don't see him on the credits, but it's very possible.
All right, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
And like you said, there's Mellotron all over this record, and John Aycock plays it. Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Lauren was correct. Special thanks to Percy Jones for extra bass on Tower.
There it is. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
He's got half a Brand X on there.
Yeah.
Tower actually, although it's not in 9/8, Tower kind of has a bit of Apocalypse vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It definitely has that, ominous.
That's like crazy.
That's great.
That's why Tony Banks was mad because he couldn't play a solo over top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve got someone else to do it.
Yeah.
To Steve's credit, he didn't write lyrics over it.
Yeah.
And Steve, the last thing I'll say is Steve came to Trick of the Tail sessions with not much because he had used it on his solo right. He didn't have many. I mean, he threw in some ideas, but didn't have a lot to.
And he's got some great ideas on Trick of the Tail. I mean, Entangle, so amazing.
Yeah, and Entangled is a good example of, half Steve, half Tony.
Yeah.
They both had pieces in 3, and he just sort of stuck them together. And when
Cool.
First half is Steve's, and then that's such a great song too.
I love how we're all musos on the panel here, so we can break it down and be like, well, they had parts that were in 6 and this and that, and that's a drummer's dream, man. You know what else is a drummer's dream? My number one choice.
Yep.
Hey, we got Wayne, the musical hermit, in the audience here.
What's up, Wayne?
What's up, Wayne? My Canadian amigo, aside from Lauren, also my Canadian amigo as well. And my dad's here. One of my favorite Hackett records, but there are 27 to choose from.
Yeah, good point.
True. And that's not including the live. No, right, exactly.
This album is an absolute game changer to anyone who's getting into progressive rock and anything that is of any sort of higher intelligence in art. That's not to sound like a pompous dick, but that's the risk you run when you talk about something that is just so brilliant as something that is like this. It is truly a masterclass in just how far out. Oh, Mom's here. Hi, Mom. It is truly a masterclass in how far out you can go and still be approachable and accessible, and it has a charm to it that it never wanes throughout the entire album, and 45 minutes just flows right by when you listen to this. I do have the deluxe version in the box set with the 17-minute version of Hierophant, unedited, doctored.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's on the remaster too.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah. But for the CD, I've just got, like, for the regular standalone disc, I've just got this old one.
A paltry 11 minutes.
Yeah. the single version, right?
Yeah.
The AM radio one. Yeah.
The compromised version.
It is absolutely fantastic from the minute you put, I have the vinyl too. So when you put the needle on the record, you just get blasted into absolute chaos. And you know what? Y'all dogging on Phil's vocals on this. I think it's great. I love his voice on the Star of Sirius. But that's okay. To each their own.
I think part of the problem is the vocal melody that was written for him. It may not just be Phil's fault. I just don't really like the sound of that. He who knows love knows who you are. That whole bit. It's a bit. There's some harmonies in there that are a bit cringy. But
well, I mean, we can't always be right. But
here we go.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
Oh, by the way, about this album, here's something that Steve never mentions in interviews, is that Voyage of the Acolyte was originally going to be a theme given to Hugh Banton from Vandergraaf for his first solo album by Tony Stratton Smith, who said, you should do this tarot-themed concept album called Voyage of the Acolyte. This is all documented in the Vandergraaf biography.
Yeah.
And then he was going to, and he never did. And so Steve Hackett sort of inherited that concept and that title.
Wow.
And he never tells anybody that. But the other thing is the guy from the Enid, there's a band called the Enid, and the guy, Robert John Godfrey, who's in that band, said that they were going to do a concept album called Voyage of the Acolyte too. And so there's kind of some murky mystery going on in the history of that album.
Yeah, that is cool. That is a cool piece. Oh, the Prog Corner's back. Scott's back in the house. And the Enid were going to call their first album Voyage of. That's right.
Beat you to it.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah. Absolutely fantastic record. Lauren knows everything, man. Whew, these guys, this is a star-studded panel with Matt and Tom and Lauren here. Well, the Prog Corner always gets good panels too. We got a good panel coming over there tomorrow. Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about ELO songs over on the Prog Corner. So stay tuned over there for that. Love you, Scott. Thank you. But yeah, my number one pick is I've listened to this tons of times, and every time you go see Steve, he always pulls out songs from this. He usually will he'll throw in Ace of Wands and A Tower Struck Down. Always plays Hierophant. I've never seen him play the whole thing because he doesn't bring Amanda Lehman over here, and he doesn't dare attempt those vocal parts himself. So he does he does the last bit of it, and it is always when the bass pedals kick in and the lights going crazy and stuff. Literally, it hits you in your soul, like you're actually like vibrating, literally.
Wow.
In the venue, and it's too big for me. Hey, Mr. Jeff Silka's in the house. What's up?
What's up,
What's
Jeff?
up, Jeff? Woo! Jeff, yeah, woo! So yeah, number one for me is Voyage of the Acolyte, or Voyage of the Hackett. It should have been called, but
That's a good, I've never heard that one.
Very funny. Very funny.
Corny too. Don't forget that. So yeah, it's Phil Collins drumming on this, Mike Rutherford bass playing. I could see why Tony would have been jealous of this because it is it's Genesis without Peter and without Tony, and it's just a fantastic record. It's one of the ones that I go back to absolutely the most for sure. My top two. So my top list from the absolute brilliance, untouchable to the great is this, then this. And then this, then this, and then this. Thank you guys so much for coming on the panel today. Thank you, Lauren, for making a guest appearance. It's super great to have all of you guys, Tom, Matt, Lauren. We'll be back again very soon. In the meantime, like and subscribe to Curless Mania. I just did a really cool video with Tom over there talking about Pink Floyd records. So go check it out.
Hey, you mentioned ELO there.
Yeah.
Today's radio show, Garden of Delights, kicks off with two unusual ELO picks that you would probably not expect.
Right on.
But I throw that out there.
Is it just me, or does anyone else start singing Canadian Rose by Blues Traveler when Lauren's on the show? I don't know, but you should go listen to the Garden of Delights tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday. And so we'll be there rocking out with you, Lauren. We'll be there enjoying the tunes.
Right.
And yeah, my show is every Thursday night at 8. Matt's show is every Tuesday night at 9 on the Eastern. Of course, that's 6 Pacific and various other times in the world. And Tom, Curless Mania, man, you got it going on, brother. Woo!
Thank you.
Yes, so I look forward to another star-studded panel here. Next time we do another show, we'll be in talks. But in the meantime, smash that like button. Don't forget to share the hell out of this and like and subscribe and blah, 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 blah. See you tomorrow on the Prog Corner. Love you all. Thank you guys so much for coming on the panel today. Don't forget to rock on.